like I'm having fun. Although come on back to Blue Bayou.
It was supposed to be just another session gig. Two young musicians, one from Texas, the other from Detroit, showed up with nothing but their guitars, their dreams, and an assignment: back up a rising star named Linda Ronstadt. They had no idea this gig would birth a revolution in American rock music. But Linda, did she? Behind her soft-spoken interviews and genre-jumping brilliance was a quiet mastermind who brought together what would become one of the best-selling bands in U.S. history. A band that sold over 200 million records, changed the sound of California forever, and made some of the most infamous enemies in the industry. But what if the real story wasn't about them? What if the woman who gave them their first shot was erased from the very legacy she helped create? And why even today does Linda Ronstadt seem content letting the world forget her role in the rise of the Eagles? The answer isn't just surprising, it's heartbreaking. And the deeper you go, the more twisted the story becomes. If you're obsessed with the hidden stories behind music legends, the betrayals, the uncredited masterminds, and the moments that changed history in a single night, then hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because on RetroWaves, we don't just tell music stories, we dig up the ones they tried to bury. Before the Eagles were legends, before they were even a band, there was a girl from Tucson, Arizona. Linda Ronstadt wasn't like the others in the 1960s folk rock scene. She didn't just want to sing protest songs. She didn't want to be Bob Dylan's Shadow or Joni Mitchell's Echo. What she wanted was freedom, musical freedom. And in 1967, that was a radical idea for a woman in music. She started out with a band called the Stone Poneys, best known for their breakout hit, Different Drum.
So don't get me wrong, it's not that I knock it, it's just...
But success came too quickly, and on someone else's terms. Capitol Records tried molding her into a marketable image, a pretty face, a soft sound, a folk act with safe edges. But Ronstadt wasn't playing along. Behind the scenes, she was tearing through genres, studying opera, playing with country, admiring Mexican folk traditions, and pushing producers to let her experiment with sounds that didn't fit the box they'd made for her. It was messy. Critics didn't know what to do with her. Executives wanted her to sit still, but Linda had other plans. And that chaos, that refusal to be categorized, it would lead her, unknowingly, to form the most iconic American rock band of the 1970s. But first, she needed a band of her own. In the spring of 1971, Linda was putting together a new live band for her solo tour. She had just released the album Silk Purse, a daring mix of country and rock that left critics confused but intrigued. But what she needed now wasn't studio approval. She needed players, young, hungry, and good. Enter Glenn Frey and Don Henley. Frey, a Detroiter with a Beatles haircut and Motown influences. Henley, a Texan drummer with a sharp mind and a subtle Southern drawl. They'd both made their way to L.A. chasing record deals, sleeping on couches, and praying for a break. According to multiple interviews and Linda herself, it was her manager, John Boylan, who suggested hiring both Frey and Henley. But here's what no one knew then. The moment these two met, something clicked. Off stage, they were opposites. On stage, they were magic. The Eagles didn't exist yet, not even the idea, but in this tiny, strange moment, touring with Linda, watching how she fused genres, taking notes, they started dreaming. Ronstadt, without realizing it, had given them not just a job, but a blueprint. And when the tour ended, what they built from her blueprint would take over the airwaves, stadiums, and record stores for the next decade. The tour ended, the applause faded, and Linda Ronstadt went back to the studio to record her next album. But something was different. Glenn Frey and Don Henley no longer just hired guns, had caught a vision, a band of their own, something distinctly American, but global in ambition. Country harmonies, rock attitude, and stories that bled out of the California heat like mirages on the freeway. So they went to David Geffen, a brash, fast-talking manager who just launched a new label, Asylum Records. Geffen didn't just like their demo, he saw dollar signs. But there's a twist most fans never hear. That same manager? He was also handling Linda Ronstadt. In fact, some insiders claimed it was Linda herself who suggested that Geffen take a meeting with the boys. Whether that's PR myth or a buried truth, one thing's certain. Without Linda's tour, there's no Frey and Henley connection. And without Geffen, there's no Eagles. By September 1971, the contract was signed. The Eagles were born. But here's the wild part. Their very first gig as the Eagles was as Ronstadt's backing band. Again, it was poetic, almost ironic. And for Linda, business as usual. She was too busy crafting her own sound to notice the empire quietly rising in her shadow. And the world? It was about to hear something it had never heard before. Before the Eagles took flight, Linda shared stages with another breed entirely, the Doors. Jim Morrison was chaos incarnate, a frontman who blurred the line between performance and possession. Linda was barely in her 20s, soft-spoken, and still figuring out who she was on stage. Opening for the Doors felt like stepping into a violent thunderstorm. Morrison would stagger across the stage, sometimes too drunk to finish a song, other times unleashing performances so explosive it left the crowd stunned. There was a darkness to those nights, a kind of threat in the air. And Linda? She held her own. She had to. It was Hollywood in the late 60s and early 70s. Sex, drugs, madness, and the slow burn of talent trying to survive it all. These moments sharpened her, toughened her, made her unafraid of bending genres and resisting authority. She didn't become the Eagles' mentor by design. But when you survive the Doors, the Sunset Strip, and the industry's condescension all in one decade, you end up teaching people a thing or two just by example. And Frey and Henley were watching. When the Eagles finally soared, they soared without Linda. She wasn't invited on tour, she didn't sing on their debut, and she wasn't offered songwriting credit for anything she might have inspired. To some, that looked like betrayal. But to Linda, it was the music business. She told interviewers time and again, with no bitterness, that she was proud of the guys. She always knew they were special, that they'd make it big. Still, her absence from their legacy isn't just personal, it's cultural. Documentaries, press retrospectives, even the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tend to treat Linda as a footnote, if they mention her at all. But you can trace the DNA of the Eagles' early sound directly back to her live arrangements, her touring band, her vision for blending twang with edge. Was it betrayal, or was it destiny? That question still haunts fans today. Some artists fight for their place in history, others let it go. Linda Ronstadt chose the latter. She never sued, never published a tell-all, never reminded the press who gave Frey and Henley their first big shot. Instead, she kept singing. From operatic arias
Take heart, grace, thy steps retrace.
to Mexican rancheras
Pregonando vas tu muerte.
to jazz standards,
Where can you be?
she lived a musical life without borders. She won 11 Grammys, sold over 100 million records, and redefined what it meant to be a female artist in a rigid, often ruthless industry. She didn't just refuse to be boxed in, she blew the box apart. In 2011, Linda Ronstadt was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, later revealed to be progressive supranuclear palsy. She can no longer sing. But her voice, the one that launched legends, defied labels, and crossed continents, still echoes. More recently, her role in shaping the Eagles has begun to resurface. Music historians, documentaries, Even the band members themselves have acknowledged her influence. But the question remains, why did it take so long? In the end, Linda Ronstadt may never be remembered as the woman who created the Eagles. But maybe she doesn't need to be, because every harmony they ever recorded carries her fingerprints. And every time that desert country California sound hits your speakers, you're hearing her story, whether you know it or not. If you love this story and want more deep dives into the untold tales of rock, pop, and legends nearly lost to time, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what we uncover next. This is RetroWaves, where music history gets remembered the right way.